Hello everyone, so this is my visual aid informative speech and I'm just going to jump right in, yeah. Solitude, loneliness, and isolation are three very similar terms but all have very distinct meanings. According to goodtherapy.org, solitude is defined as the physical state of being alone. Loneliness is more of a psychological term, and it is defined as the craving for social contact, and it's often linked to feelings of sadness or emptiness and depressive thoughts, stuff like that. And then isolation is a term that kind of combines both of these, and it's defined as a lack of social relationships and emotional support. And so I'm going to kind of focus on isolation in this speech. I'm going to talk about the effects, different ways to cope with it, and why it is relevant today. So the effects of isolation fall into two separate categories, psychological and physical. And so psychological effects include increased sympathetic nervous system activity, which is one of the stress responses that our body experiences. There are sympathetic and parasympathetic, also known as fight or flight, and sympathetic is the flight response. And so when this response is triggered, it increases alertness and heart rate. Another effect is accelerated brain and cardiovascular aging. There is a heightened risk of developing a disability like depression, anxiety, and elderly who are isolated have a high risk of developing dementia. So when we're born or developing, we have 7 executive functions: self-awareness, inhibition, nonverbal short-term memory, emotional regulation, self-motivation, planning, and problem solving. And when we're isolated, those executive functions become impaired. There is accelerated cognitive decline, which is a natural process that occurs as we age, but with isolation, it is accelerated, and it's stuff like trouble remembering, learning new things, concentrating, and making decisions. And so moving on to the physical effects. I got this information on apa.org, and they include heightened levels of stress hormones and inflammation, and this leads to aging. So people who are stressed tend to age faster, as opposed to people who are more relaxed tend to age very well. Heart disease is more common in people who are isolated. Increased vulnerability to chronic illnesses, like when we go outside, we're exposed to separate things that will build up our immune system. But when we're inside all the time, we aren't exposed to those. So whenever we are, the effects would be much worse. Weight gain, which has to do with stress and our responses to stress, which is eating for a lot of people. There is a lack of sleep, which is also in correlation to stress hormones. Our body really just doesn't know, or our brain doesn't know when to stop thinking, so we lose sleep. People often have increased bad habits, so if you're bored all the time, you're thinking of what to do, your mind will go to things that you enjoy or are addicted to, such as smoking or drinking. And I found this very interesting. There was a study done in 2015, and it found that social isolation increases premature death by 30%, which is weird, but yeah. Moving on to how to cope with isolation, and I got this information on verywellmind.org, and these are all kind of things that will help with mental health and physical health, but mostly mental health. So it's important to try and make every day feel as normal as possible. So by doing this, you can maybe get a planner or make a schedule. Just do whatever you can to make it feel normal. Staying informed. So knowing about this situation or why you're being isolated can reduce anxiety, but on the flip side, knowing too much information can lead to feelings of being overwhelmed. So it is important to limit media consumption and not let whatever situation is going on consume your whole life, because that can lead to anxiety. Yeah. Staying active is very important. It's important to not let yourself go. And feeling good about the way you look and liking what you see in the mirror is very important, and if like you don't like yourself, then that can lead to depression. Do things you enjoy. Feelings of loneliness can make you lose sense of things that are meaningful and things that are important. So it's important to just kind of remember that and do things that you enjoy doing. Connecting with others. FaceTime has personally saved my life during this whole epidemic. We live in a day where even though we're isolated, we can still contact our friends and have emotional support within like 2 touches, you know? It's so easy, so don't take advantage of that. There's also texting and Snapchatting, which we're all so used to. It's important to find sources of comfort. So, like, give yourself a pedicure or a manicure. Go find a dog to pet. Maybe take a bath. Light some candles. Cook something if you like cooking. Have a cup of tea or coffee or, like, a hot drink. That's always comforting. Practice self-hygiene. Being isolated and not seeing people is not an excuse to not brush your teeth twice a day. And it's important to get enough rest. You know, if you're constantly tired, that's just not good. Make something, create something. Bullet journaling can be fun. Painting. Maybe you can make friendship bracelets for whenever we can go outside again. Write. I don't know, maybe write a story, a poem, something like that, things you like to do. Maybe pick up a new hobby. There's so much time we have on our hands, like maybe just put your phone down, stop scrolling through TikTok, and find something new that you might like doing. Redecorate your room. It's so boring, we're all stuck in the same space. Maybe switch it up a bit, that might help. It'll make you not bored. Distract yourself. Maybe read a book. Or listen to music, or create music if you know how to do that. I don't know how to do that, but yeah. Netflix, the holy grail. Netflix is awesome. It's the best way to waste time, in my opinion. There's so many good shows that you can binge on it, like All American, Orange is the New Black, New Girl, Black Mirror. Like, there's so many ways to waste time on Netflix. It's really corny, but practice self-love. Make sure you love yourself. It's so important. It's so easy to just kind of let yourself go when you're not seeing anyone. So, just kind of check in on your mind every once in a while because you're kind of stuck with it. And, yeah, so continuing on, why is social isolation important and relevant right now? The coronavirus. Dun, dun, dun. So I got this information on the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. It's important because it stops the spread. And corona is kind of scary because you can actually have the virus but not be showing any symptoms. Like, it can stay in your body for 2 to 14 days and you won't show any signs. And it's also important to know the symptoms of it. So it's just like a common cold or the flu. So coughing, fever, tiredness or fatigue, chronic difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, stuff like that. And so our demographic, so my audience, more like healthy college students, if we were to get the coronavirus, we would survive through it. So staying home and keeping yourself isolated, no matter how boring it is, no matter how much you want to go to see your friends, it's out of respect that we stay at home because there are more people that are more susceptible to it. It's like older people, the elderly, if they get it, that's not good. Or people with pre-existing medical conditions like asthma, diabetes, heart disease, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's my speech. Y'all stay safe.